Good evening, parents. Thank you for coming out to our curriculum night. We are excited to share with you our new initiative that we are putting into place. It is called Project-Based Learning, and it also goes hand in hand with our Digital School of Communication. Capel defines learning as the lifelong process whereby the learner transforms information and experiences into knowledge, skills, behaviors, and attitudes. We are starting project-based learning this year, and here's a brief video that'll kind of give you a better understanding of what exactly we are talking about with project-based learning.
You remember what it was like in school. It was boring. You sat in class, memorized as much as you could, and tried to pass a test at the end. But is that good enough? These days, school can be more interesting and effective by focusing students on work that matters. This is project-based learning explained. Most adults live in a world of projects. Whether it's a job assignment, home improvement, or planning a wedding, we need to actively solve problems. But unfortunately, schoolwork looks more like this than this. Let's take a look at this project-based world. Meet Claire. She was recently presented with a challenge. Her company, Super Suds, makes soap, and it was up to her to find the most earth-friendly way to produce it in the future. Her boss gave her a budget and a few requirements, and it was up to her to come up with a solution. She organized and managed a team who researched the options and created materials summarizing the issues. Claire's team asked for feedback and presented their findings to the boss. Claire came out of the project looking like a rock star, and she learned a lot about green products. If you look closely, Claire's success involved critical thinking, collaboration, and communication, things that aren't often taught in traditional classrooms. The world needs more Claires, so how do we get them? The answer is project-based learning, or PBL. By focusing students on a project, teachers put them on a path that deepens their knowledge and builds skills they'll need in the future. Here's what I mean. Mr. Simmons has always been a good science teacher, and his students do well on Friday's tests. Unfortunately, what they learned was gone by Saturday morning. That wasn't good enough for him. Soon he learned about project-based learning and decided to give it a shot. Mr. Simmons got the idea for his first project on microorganisms when nearly half of his students were suddenly absent with the flu. He asked his students why they thought so many of their classmates got sick at the same time. That lively discussion produced a lot of good questions and a list of things the kids wanted to know. Mr. Simmons then announced their project was to help elementary school kids understand how can we not get sick. After dividing the class into teams, he got them started on the project. It was up to the students to ask questions, research, collaborate, give each other feedback, and figure out the best ways to make their points clear to children. One team chose to make an educational video on the connection between hand washing and avoiding the flu. Another chose to create posters to show how viruses spread. The project teams showed off their final work to an enthusiastic audience of parents and their children at a nearby elementary school. Sitting in the front row was our good friend and local rock star Claire, who saw a bit of herself in the students. It was clear that the project was a success for the students, the audience, and Mr. Simmons. His students practiced critical thinking, collaboration, and communication. The project wasn't about memorization, but learning in depth about viruses and how to prevent spreading disease, a lesson they will never forget. At the end of the presentation, Claire introduced herself to the students and told them that they were rock stars and that the world needs more people who can think like them. To learn more about project-based learning, go to BIE.org.
So hopefully that answered a little bit of your questions on what project-based learning is. But project-based learning is defined as a teaching method that engages students in learning. Project-based learning uses 21st century skills through an extended student-influenced inquiry process which is structured around complex, authentic questions based on state standards. Project-based learning has carefully designed products and learning tasks. One of the things that we do want to emphasize to parents is that these are based on state standards. We're not teaching something different. This is just how we're teaching it. So the state standards are still incorporated into every project that we're doing. Projects versus PBL. You might be familiar with traditional projects, where students have taken something home. They don't really need that much teacher guidance to go through the process of completing it. They don't have a lot of opportunities in choice. They just know that they have to do this project and their end result will look like this, and it's based upon directions and they're done at the end of learning. With project-based learning, the teacher is in there guiding and collaborating with the teams. So the students are the ones that are generating the ideas and kind of going for using the teacher for clarification, guidance, and moving them along in the process of their learning. The students make the most of their choices during the project within the pre-approved guidelines. The guidelines are given to the students through rubrics, which explains to them what they have to have incorporated and what they are learning and how they're to go about doing it in a very open manner. It's based upon driving questions that encompass every aspect of the learning that will occur and establishes the needs to knows. Why PBL works. Project-based learning has shown to be successful because it motivates students who typically get bored in school. It raises their understanding because they take ownership of the learning and they're really figuring out how to problem solve, and they're going to research how to solve it. So they get a really deep understanding of what they're going through and experiencing with their learning. They build critical thinking skills. They're not given the information, they have to find it. Further creativity and independence. Their end project is up to them what it looks like. It doesn't have to be a poster. It doesn't have to be a presentation. They are allowed the freedom to choose what their end project looks like. They have an ownership over their project. It provides flexibility both for the instructors and the students, and it provides mastery of 21st century skills. You'll see those 21st century skills through the collaboration that the students are in. They're working with one another to problem solve and to agree on the process of how they're going to go through their learning and how they're going to create their end product. Creativity, it's out-of-the-box thinking. It's them coming together and deciding how they're going to solve this problem and what their product is going to look like. The teacher is not telling them, at the end you will have a trifold that displays these things. They have to display it as they see fit. Critical thinking, they're working with one another. They're using all the tools that are available to them within the classroom, within the school, within the internet. They can call on experts, they can Skype. It's not just the materials that are provided in a typical classroom. The critical thinking, down at the bottom you'll see a chart. It says need to know and knows. As students need to know information, they put a post-it note on there. As they know the information, they move it over to the right side. This board is constantly moving because as they get further and further into the project, they'll find out they have new needs to knows and that they've already mastered something that they didn't know originally, and they get to move it over. So they see movement within their learning. Up in the right-hand corner, you see an entry event. This was describing a problem here we had at Lakeside, and that was given to students, and they had to create a solution to the problem, and that was their information that they got to refer back to. Communication, the students have to be aware of what the problem is and communicate what the problem is before they can move forward with their project.
So what are you trying to communicate through your PBL?
To tell Lakeside learners to respect our PBL.
One of the problems that was brought to the attention of this class was that students needed to be respectful throughout the school, and that there were different problem areas where students were not being respectful of equipment or of one another, and he decided that his was that they needed to be respectful of the equipment in the gym, and so he has to solve how to communicate that problem and solution school-wide to Lakeside. Assessment. These are the rubrics that are referenced earlier. There are going to be several different rubrics. Students know what is expected of them, and they get to reference the rubrics depending on what portion of the project they're in or what they're being graded on. This is an example of a presentation rubric for K through 2. If students are doing presentation, these are the things that the teacher would be looking for. Are they looking at the audience? Are they speaking loudly and clearly? Are they using pictures, drawings, and props to show a visual to their audience? And so that would be a presentation rubric. There are other rubrics. This is an example of a critical thinking rubric. The students will be provided this, and they get to see where they fall within their critical thinking skills and how that has been evidenced in their product. We are going to be calling on you, parents, to help us with this. A lot of times we need real-world problems to be coming into our school to help our students figure out how to solve those real-world problems. So we'll be asking you, the experts, to come in and maybe give us a launching event of something that we can help you solve, and then you'll come back and you'll hear the solutions that the students have come up with for the real-world problem. So be looking for that soon, because we're going to be generating information so we know what your expertise is, and so we can call on you to be part of our community of learners here at Lakeside Elementary. At this point, we're going to be turning the presentation over to the educators in the room, and we ask that you please call us or contact us with any questions. We'll be putting more information on the web. We're very excited about the project-based learning and incorporating the digital school communication into this. Here at Lakeside, we have great things going on, and we'll be inviting you to come in and do some learning walks with us so that you can see what's going on here in the school. Thanks for being a part of our learning.